Welcome back to Inside the Lodge. We're here with manager Vinny Murphy, and Vin, thanks for coming to see us today.
No worries.
We're going to start at the beginning. From when you took the job to now, what do you think the biggest thing that you've learned is, and what advice would you give yourself from when you first took over?
Oh, there's loads. Like where I was sort of just thrown into it, you'd say it was never a plan. So just for those that sort of feel like it was all planned, and it really wasn't. It was like come in and help out with the existing management team until the end of the season. And then the way football goes, within like 5 days, it was sort of look after the team as like a caretaker-y sort of role. And then I just sort of saw that as like anything, you do all right here, you might have half a chance. And I think out of the like 5 games that I stepped in for, I think we'd won 3, drew 1, lost 1, which sort of landed me the job in turn. So in terms of advice, I found it quite difficult at the start. I'm a lot better now, still sort of not struggle with it, but still have to come to terms with it, of making that transition and making that divide from player to manager, especially when you come in there and you've played with pretty much everyone that's in there, like against them, with them, and sort of, I don't want to say creating that hierarchy, but of course there needs to be a line now, because it's not have a laugh and a joke and that's it, because we're mates and we're teammates, and there has to be that sort of boundary now. So that was definitely one of the hardest things for me to establish from the beginning, that boundary, that sort of, now that they're players, let's say, you only talk to them about so much, whereas as player to player, you can talk about anything, say whatever about whoever, and because you're players, whereas I have to know that, like, I can't go to them regardless of people that there's people in this change room and that were in this change room that I've known like 10 years. So it's difficult, because as players, you would pick up the phone and you'd say, oh, what do you think of this one? Or what do you think he got that right? Do you think he got that wrong? And it's sort of establishing that boundary to the only people that I can discuss that level of stuff with at the moment is like the management team that we've got in place, or the chairman, the committee, the board, and sort of separating myself from that side of things. So that was one of the things that I found harder. And you know what, one of the things that I'm sort of still struggling with now is boxing up that urge to play. Like, I know it sounds ridiculous, and listen, I'm under no illusion that I'm in no physical state at the moment to play, but it's so hard. It's so hard, even with training, I had to stop myself from tackling someone from the touchline on Tuesday's friendly. Like, the ball's got dribbled past me and I've gone, and I was just like, but yeah, it's so hard, because it's like an environment that I enjoy, it's a club that I enjoy, it's, regardless of my playing days here, there's nothing but fond memories of this place. So it's really hard not to be in the changing room and not get that buzz back to, like, you know what, go and do six to 8 weeks of training, sort yourself out, and just, you're in contention for playing. But there is sort of that part of me that's telling yourself, like, don't be stupid, like, focus on the managing thing. Imagine how difficult that would be, doing the player manager role. Like, and I've had advice from other people that have done it and stuff like that, and like the consistent piece of advice that I keep on getting is like, once you step in the dugout, stay there. So yeah, that's sort of a demon that I'm fighting all the time, and it doesn't help when these boys are all telling me, like, why don't you just go and get fit? Why don't you just go and get fit? And it's just, I have to just constantly put that to bed, because as much as I really want to, I just don't feel like it's the best for anyone, for me, for the club, for anyone. So yeah, they're the 2 main things really that I find difficult, and just all of the other stuff that people don't realise go into managing a football team, like the little admin bits, from like registering players to sending out the match day squad, to finding out people's fitness levels, to getting fitness reports on players and seeing if they're fit or how they're struggling. You don't deal with none of that as a player. You just worry about yourself, and having like 16, 17, 18 to worry about and keep tabs on that, like, it took me a while to get used to that as well. Like, it was very full on. I can manage it now, because having a management team in there and delegating certain jobs to Tone and certain jobs to, it takes the pressure off myself a little bit. But when I first come in and I was like taking the training sessions, hanging out the kit, filling up the water bottles, doing the warm-up, sending out the squad, like liaising with the physio, finding there was just loads to do at the start, and it made me question, if I'm honest, from the start of it, like, do I really want to do this? Like, this is a lot more than what I thought it was. And then, like I said, you get a structure, you get a routine, you start getting people help you out. I feel like I'm talking loads. You start getting people help you out, and it starts to make sense a bit, and then that's when you start to enjoy and like realise what an opportunity it is. So yeah, it wasn't all plain sailing, definitely not.
I think I remember that at the start you were probably struggling to delegate a little bit, weren't you? How much does it help having your brother, someone who you can talk pretty frankly to, as someone helping you, and Show's been your friend a long time, I know, as well?
Yeah. It's catch-22, you know, like, it does help, obviously, because there is no filter, like, and I'm never going to be offended at what he says to me, and vice versa, because, like, there's that, obviously, that bond there. But then at the same time, because you know each other so well, and he knows how opinionated I am and how fixated I am on doing things my way and certain ways and stuff like that, he's very similar. So don't think that it's brotherly love, like, and we just, you're right, mate, this is great, you're at football with your brother. Like, there's times where we've gone at it, like, never in front of the boys, but in the car on the way home, like, in the car on the way to football, even at training sessions, like, gone at it because he wants to do things a certain way. And don't get me wrong, it doesn't happen every week by a long stretch, but there is times where, how can I put it, his football knowledge and coaching ability is 100 times better than mine, like, without a doubt. Like, in terms of actual on paper qualifications and in terms of experience, like, 100% better than mine. So like you said, I found it very difficult at the start to just fully hand that over to someone and just say to him, this week I want to work on X, Y and Z in training. And in fairness to him, he just says, yeah, all right, no worries. And within a couple of hours, I'll get 4 different session plans sent to me, a breakdown of what's going on. Happy with that? Yeah, cool, no worries. But at the start, it was like, no, I'm going to do it. And my brother's like, so what do you want me to do? And it was like, cones. Yeah, cones maybe. And that was not because I didn't think he could do it. It was just, I'm just very much like that as a person, whether it be football, whether it be work. I don't like asking for help. I don't like delegating. I'm happy to do everything myself. And then the reason that I sort of do that really is, like, if it fails, you can't pass the buck. It's not on no one else. I'll own that 100%. So I never want people to sort of use that as an avenue and be like, oh, but he delegated everything to his brother, so maybe he's the problem. Like, no, it can't be that. Like, as much as there's a management team and there's stuff like that, of course everyone plays their part, but without sounding big-headed or arrogant, like, the direction comes from somewhere, and that's from me, do you know what I mean? So yeah, it was difficult doing that at the start, but at the same time, I'm very grateful of the people that are in place, because like you said, there's bonds that go outside of football there, so that always helps, of course it does, and someone's got to calm me down in the dugout. So
is there anything that you think you would like to have known as a player, now with your experience as a manager? I know people aren't always honest about if they're carrying an injury because they want to play. They're not always honest about the lifestyle they're living. They might be working nights, not getting great sleep, things like that. Are there things, do you wish you could be more honest all the time with managers and maybe find a better balance that way? Or is that in the nature of non-league players? They're all going to always be fighting for their spot.
It's difficult. I do feel like it's changing. I do feel like with, like, the quote-unquote modern player, let's say, there is a big difference to these footballers now to when I was 18 trying to break into first teams. Like, when I was 18 trying to break into first teams, without a doubt, like, there was I'd tell you nothing about an injury. Like, my leg could be hanging off, but I'm playing. And I could have had an hour's sleep, but I'm still playing. Like, I was never really much of a going out or a drinker at 18, so that was never really a problem. But I feel like that was very much that old school culture, that old school ethos where my generation come from, that it was no signs of weakness. Like, no, even if you're carrying a knock, you play. Even if you don't feel up to it, you play. Even if you've played 4 times this week and that's the 5th, you play. And I don't agree with that. It's easier said than done now, but I tell these boys all the time, like, please just be honest with me. But because we had a situation at Whittam away last season, you probably remember what a torrid time that was. But it turns out after the game, like, 4 of the boys have been like, yeah, there's no way I should have played. And you might be able to afford one of them, but no wonder why we got rolled. Like, there's 4 of you. So, yeah, that just comes from a place of trust, though. Do you know what I mean? Whereas when I've played for old school sort of hairdryer treatment managers when I was younger, you were scared to be honest with them because they'll take your head off in front of everyone, and you knew that put you so far down the pecking order or on the chopping block, let's say, that it was like, I'd rather not be honest. I'd rather go out there and do the whole, like, I've left it all out there and maybe play at a 5 out of 10 than say to him, you know what, I think I've only got 20 minutes in me. And he looks at me sideways and sort of, I'm now like on the ins and outs list. Do you know what I mean? So that's that trust that you have to build with players, and it's something I feel like we're achieving. Would I say that we're 100% of the way there? Like, no, because everyone's got their own ideology on how they, as a player, how they're going to approach that. There are definitely players in this side that will tell me week in, week out, I'm 100% fit, and they might not be. But I'd like to say we're very close to having that open forum, that level of honesty. Because even when it comes to like team talks and when it comes to on the pitch, I'm happy for them to talk back to me. It's my way, shut up, get on with it. It'll never be that, because as a player, I was impossible to deal with like that. There's no way a manager could tell me, shut up, get on with it. It's what I'm doing. And that doesn't mean I'm going to be disrespectful and I'm going to shout and scream at you back. But especially for the senior players, I feel like there needs to be that level of dialogue, that level of understanding. It can't just be, you're going to do this, and if you don't do this, then you're out the side. There's players that play in this team now that are 10 times the footballer that I ever was. So if I can't take a bit of criticism back from them, or a bit of how they see the game because they're in it, then I don't really feel like things are going to work. And that's where that breakdown of trust is always going to lie, because they'll just feel like, what's the point talking to him? It just tells me shut up anyway. So
to ignore what experienced players and someone like Eddie Cole who's played,
yeah, 100%.
to ignore what they're getting from the pitch, it'd be a waste of a resource.
Yeah, of course. It's exactly what you just said. It's like having sort of, like, they're as good as ex-pros in non-league, like 500 games ranging from step 2 all the way to step 5, or step 5 all the way to step 1 even. Like, so I would be exactly what you said. I'd be mad not to take on board. Doesn't mean that I'm always going to implement it, but I'll definitely always hear it. Because, yeah, it'd be a complete waste of time. What's the point of bringing these players in if you're just trying to mould these super experienced, super, like, they're still enthusiastic, they want to go and express themselves, and I'm not trying to mould them and, like, keep them under wraps just to play a certain system and play a certain way. And that's why I feel like boys are enjoying it now, because they've got that freedom to go and do what they want. They know there's a game plan, but at the same time, I tell them every week, part of my team talk every week is, yes, this is the game plan, yes, this is the style of play, but if you have to adapt it and if you have to change it whilst the game goes on, you're in it, not me. So however you feel and see fit, I said, but what with that comes, you have to be able to own that if that don't work. Yeah. Like, you're not going to get ruined by me because of it, but I just want you to be like, you know what, Gaff, you've told me this, I thought this might work, didn't happen, sorry, won't do it again. And that's it, done, put to bed. So I just feel like that level of freedom and that level of reign to be able to express themselves, like, that's important. And that's why we're getting players through the door. Players like Ade that is very reluctant to come back and play at this level, but because he's allowed that platform and various other reasons, it makes sense for him.
Brilliant. You've talked a couple of times there about yourself as a player. You were a pretty no-nonsense defender. Good in the air, big tackler, cleared the ball a very long way. Very, very long way. That's not what we've seen at all from players you've brought in, or we've not really built a team in your...
You know what, I'm laughing because I hate it when people talk about me as a player, because that's what everyone says, you know. That's what everyone says.
Like, you don't get enough credit?
No nonsense, big tackler, tough guy, clears the... Honestly, like, I was so much better than that. But again, it boils down to, like, systems, and I've played how a manager's asked me to play. Do you get what I mean? Like, it's in a league where it was notorious to that, Essex Senior League, and even at this level, it was notorious to, especially when I was playing, we're talking like 5 years ago now, like, centre-halves were centre-halves. They'd done their job. You headed, you tackled, and when you cleared it, it went. Because if it didn't and it fell to the edge of the box, your manager was taking your head off. And I've played for many a manager like that. And that's not a positive nor a negative, that's just the way it was. And I laugh because everyone says, like, that was all you was about. Honestly, like, there was so much more, but I've just played to a system. I've played to a system, I've played to instructions, I've effectively done as I'm told.
Feel like you should get fit and let people know?
I don't need to let people know. I don't need to let people know because that's done now. It was like, it's just a shame that the way football's evolved and the way football's gone, like this, if you want to call it this modern day football era, would have suited me down to the ground as a centre half. But back then, like, you can say yourself, watching non-league 6-7 years ago, how many times did you see a centre half drop into the 18-yard box and get off his goalkeeper? Do you know what I mean? And if you did see it, you did a crowd going absolutely mental. So, yeah, it was unheard of. And if you did play out from the back, stupidly, as you got it as a centre half, you was only doing what your goalkeeper was going to do anyway. And more often than not, that was me, because you've said that you can clear it. That's what I was used for. Like, you've got decent technique and it goes far. So there you go, do it. And yeah, I just done as I was told and sort of followed instructions. But believe it or not, before like Walthamstow saw me and stuff, I think, how old was I? Like 20, 21? Playing centre midfield for Redbridge and the Ryman North. Like, scored like 14 from CDM. So I don't need to prove anything. Like, anyone that knows me knows that there's a footballer in there. But unfortunately for me, like, I can do the ugly side of the game, no problem. Like, I'll roll my sleeves up, no problem. And that's what people recognised was my strength. So they went with that, and like I said, I didn't want to be a bad egg and rock the boat. It was no worries. That's what you want me to do, I'll do it.
You do it. Good soldier with it. We've got pre-season going. We're going to be training in about half hour, 40 minutes from now. How do you, from your own experience, try and make it enjoyable, but also we know it's running, it's hot, it is getting miles in the legs. What's your philosophy?
Oh, from my experience, regardless, when I was 18 to up until, how old was I when I properly stopped playing, like 28, 29? I hated pre-season, hated it. And even when I was super fit and one of the ones at the front when I was like 20, still hated it. And unfortunately, I can't take that out of me as a manager now. Like, I'll be lying if I sat here and said to you, I really enjoy pre-season. I don't. I hate it. I hate watching players run 5K. Like, how boring for a manager. I get it. It needs to be done. There needs to be a base level of fitness in there, and those engines need to be built from now. I completely understand it, and I understand the benefits of it, and like what sort of stead it puts you in for the season. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you I enjoy it. And also, even when it comes to games, as a player, as a manager, I hate doing anything non-competitive. And no matter what you want to say, friendlies are non-competitive football matches. As much as I want to try and install, like, yes, we go out and we win, it's a whole different feeling. So yeah, of course, we want to go out, we want to win, we want to get our style of play right, but I can't be mad at certain players. I'm not saying that they're completely sort of fobbing it off and going out there and strolling around, because they're not. You've watched it. But at the same time, I know for a fact that when game time comes, there's another 20% that they're dragging from somewhere that's coming, because I was exactly the same. So I have to understand that. And as much as I hate the running aspect, and I know a lot of the boys do, but it's one of them things where you just got to grit your teeth and get on with it. Like, don't get me wrong, it's not all running. It won't be, because the game's changed, and the days of turning up to the first sort of 4 weeks in pre-season and you don't see a football and you've just got your runners and people are throwing up. Like, it's changed a little bit from that, because it has to, because the modern player is, I feel like they've got a lot more to say for themselves than the boys back in the day, do you know what I mean? So they will have an opinion on it, and it will just make your life harder. But at the same time, anyone that's played non-league, they know that pre-season's about getting miles in the tank, like, without a doubt. Whether that's straight running, whether that's with a ball, whether that's with loads of games, whatever method you choose to use, ultimately pre-season is about just building up your lungs. So yeah, I can't sit here and lie to you and say that I enjoy it, because I don't. But I also understand the method behind it and the point to it, and that's what I have to try and get across to the boys, because I'd be a liar if I just told them and got really enthusiastic and say I love pre-season, because I don't. No.
Recruitment. It's the summer. We all know what it's like in non-league. It's it can go up to the start of the season. You can think you've got a squad and they could all leave and go to
Australia.
Go to Australia, like one of us has. How happy are you with how it's going, and what more do you think you want to do in this time?
You know what, the sort of biggest positive from all of that is that when you look at the squad that we finished with last season and you look at what's here now, there's 2 changes, and both of them were not by my choice. One, Rory, as you know, fair play to the kid, he come in, he was unbelievable for us, and off the back of that has nicked an extension or a move with the pro club that he's playing for, so fair play to him, nothing I could do about that.
Great character as well.
What a kid. Like, I'll be very, very, very surprised if he don't go and have a career in football. Like, very surprised. But if he don't, Rory, you know where we are. Like, 100%, I'd, like, all day long. What a kid. And what a sort of mentality for... Imagine how daunting that must be as like a 17-year-old young man coming into not just any changing room, but my changing room. And that's not because of me, that's because of the characters we got in there. Like, the first day, blonde hair, blue eyes, he's walked in and see Kevin Songolo and Brian Moses, he's got to be thinking, Jesus Christ, what is going on in here? And within like a week, he's sending videos of himself singing songs in the group chat, and he's up dancing with the boys in the changing room, and he just bought into everything, and the boys welcomed him in with open arms. Like, they were superb. So yeah, Rory's one of the only changes, and the other one's Ryan, and I brought Ryan in. Ryan done really well for us. Was in and out of the squad due to selection, due to boys coming in and performing, and I've always been an advocate on if you're injured or you get subbed off and someone comes in and they perform, like, they'll play. And Ryan just had a chat with me at the end of the season and said, listen, I still want to play the league above. I've got a few options there, like, I'm going to go and give it a go. And we just shook hands and said, yeah, no worries, mate. Other than that, every single player that played for me last season is still here. And that was the biggest thing for me. That was not my biggest concern, but that was my biggest sort of issue last season, that I have to make sure that my retained list is definitely bigger than my new signings list. Because if you remember rightly, when I first took over, let's say, like, there was a squad overhaul and a complete rebuild in like 6 weeks.
Yeah. Like,
maybe even less than that. Like, you're talking about a minimum of 10 out the door and a minimum of like 14 in. And believe it or not, it might not have looked it from the sidelines, because I don't really feel like we ever looked completely disjointed last season. But that's really hard to sort of get up and running and get off the ground mid-season. And with that that number of sort of incomings. Different if it's 1, 2 or 3, but you're talking like 8s and 9s. And getting that all to get going mid-season, that was tough. So I was just really conscious that, 1, I didn't want to put myself through that again, and 2, I don't really feel like we needed to. Like, if you look at how we finished the season and look at where we finished, I'd be crazy to go and think, I need like 6 new boys. Don't get me wrong. I think one of the boys that we signed, Louis, I tried to sign him last season. Like, I'll pull no punches on that. Like, whilst he was at Redbridge and was flying there, I tried to sign him, and fair play to the kid. He was like, listen, I'm enjoying it here, I'm scoring, I'm going to stay here. Phone me at the end of the season, we'll have a chat. And that's what we did. And young Bobby, no disrespect to Stowmarket, played against them. He was the only thing on the pitch that caused us a problem.
Yeah, he belongs somewhere down.
Oh my God, like, I couldn't believe it. And all of the boys were saying it as well, like, to the point where I remember thinking it was Kai and Ade saying, like, someone's got to smash that kid, like, stop letting him run at us. And I had a chat with him briefly after the game, said the same thing to him. Like, I don't really want to ruffle too many feathers, but I said the same thing to him. I was like, listen, you're enjoying it, you're playing week in, week out, stay where you are, we'll have a chat at the end of the season. And obviously I knew we had to get a goalkeeper in with Rory going. So Lewis is someone, again, believe it or not, I've known since playing for Redbridge. So I've known Lou best part of 10 years. So it was a relatively easy phone call to make, just had to iron out like the T's and C's with it. But other than that, have I missed out anyone? Louis, Bobby, Samson's back with us. I don't know what Samson's doing yet because, again, he's still young. He still wants to try the pro game. So, yeah, of course, and which is fair enough. I've just told him, listen, if you want a platform, we're here. So, yeah, Samson's back with us. I've got one that I'm keeping quiet. You two probably know, but it's not general knowledge yet. But when that gets announced, there'll be a lot of hype surrounding that. Good player, but other than that, that's like 4 or 5. And if I'm honest, one of the only reasons as well that it's 4 or 5 is because of obviously the new rules this season where you can use all of your subs. So for me, it was just an emphasis on the squad needs to be stronger than ever. So it was like, instead of, no disrespect to the youth teams or the whoever, obviously you could get away with last season with having 2 16-year-olds on your bench with no real sort of inclination to have to use them unless you were super comfy and it was like, there you go kid, go and have an opportunity. Whereas now, like, you need 5 boys that are ready to come on and make a difference because you can use them. So that was another reason why the squad had to be strengthened that it did. But I didn't see the end of the season. Once I spoke to all of the boys and they was confirmed that they was coming back, I didn't sit here and think to myself like, wow, I've got to go and get him 5. I was just like, well, I've spoken to these 2, I'm keen on getting them through the door. Whatever happens, happens. And the biggest signing for us is keeping hold of what we've kept hold of, like, without a doubt.
So that's all gone pretty well. What do you expect for this season coming?
I just want to win football matches. Like, it's that plain and simple. Like, I don't want to sit here and set targets, whether they be realistic, whether they be unrealistic. I'm not looking at the bigger picture. I'm not looking at leagues and cups and all that stuff. I'm looking at everything game by game. And Saturday's game I want to win. Tuesday's game I want to win. Next Saturday's game I want to win, and we'll just go from there. And whatever monster it does or doesn't build, then so be it. But these boys know that as well. These boys know that we're here to win everything in front of us. And if it happens, great. If it don't, we'll still try and win the next one and the one after that. So, yeah, everyone's going to have their own opinions on expectations and league tables and all of that stuff. I don't really want to look that far ahead. I want to set like monthly, 6 weekly milestones of 4 games this month. I want X amount of points out of that, and we'll just go from there. And like I said, hopefully it grows into a monster, and if it don't, I'll back to the drawing board and I'll go again. But yeah, I've got high hopes for these guys. It's a good group. It's a real balance of experience, youth, people that have been there, done it, people that want to go there and do it. And yeah, I don't see why it can't go in a certain direction. All I will say to end on is that the sort of Walthamstow of old, or the stigma surrounding me, like you mentioned, of the smash and crash, let's have a fight, we'll never lose that. Don't get me wrong, I'll never lose that as a person. But there's a different type of football that you're going to see from this side this season. And fingers crossed it works. If it don't, I'll make no mistake in going back to plan A and we'll fight our way through games. But if that works as well, it's a whole different string to Walthamstow's bow. And I'm not saying other teams haven't been good. That's not what I'm saying at all. But we all know, like, let's make no mistake, like, it was notorious. Come to East London, it's going to be tough. They're going to be physical. It's going to be a fight. Like I said, we'll never lose that. But there's some real football going to be played this season.
It's exciting.
Yeah, man, definitely. Thank you very much. Cheers, gents.